Oh, yeah. If you live in the same part of the country that I do, it is officially drift sim season. It's way too cold out there. My car has no heat, no doors, or no heat, no windows, lots of holes in it. Just not a good time. So it's definitely much more fun over the winter. Run doors with your buddies over the internet, have a good time in the comfort of your own home. Now, whether you go fancy, you go cheap with these setups, you get your wheel, you get your shifter, you get the pedals, but what you don't get is the handbrake. And then obviously that's a big part of drifting or sim racing or really whatever you're trying to do, especially in Assetto Corsa, but the kits don't come with a handbrake. Now you can order these things off of eBay, off of the internet, but they're like $100 a pop. And I like making things, I like figuring stuff out. So I was able to build this one for significantly cheaper than that. And that's what I'm going to show you how to do today. So my handbrake setup is really a combination of a couple different really important parts. One, obviously you've got the handbrake itself. For this, what I did was I ordered the cheapest, crappiest Chinese overnight from Japan handbrake on eBay. They sell these, they're like $20 a pop. I'll link a couple of examples in the description for that. But basically what you get is a handbrake, somehow you get a master cylinder and all the connections that put it together and allow you to squeeze the lever, rip the e-brake. The next important component is going to be this little computer chip right here. And what that is, it's a USB keyboard input thing. I don't actually know the proper name for it. And it just allows you to kind of program out a switch and allow that to run via USB cord into the computer. So you got your handbrake, you got your chip for the USB input, and then last but not least, you need a switch. Now, the switch is just a little contact thing that basically completes this circuit here. So as you can see, I've got it set up so when I pull the handbrake, you hear that little click. It completes the circuit via this switch, runs into the circuit board, and then that's what lets the computer know that you are pulling the handbrake. And so this is an important time to clarify that there's two types of handbrake setups for sim drifting. One, which we've got here, is what you might call a button setup. All it is, it's replicating you pressing a button on or off, on, off. If you think about a handbrake in a real car, that's not the case. You have hydraulic pressure. The harder you pull, the harder the brakes lock up. That's the other type, which is significantly more expensive, way harder to build. You need fancy switches and stuff. Those are the expensive ones. Yes, it's better, but you got to draw the line somewhere. I don't want the sim rig to cost more than the real rig. So again, what we're doing here, this is called a button setup. All it is you're transferring this motion here of pulling the handbrake and making that replicate you pressing a button, activating the handbrake in the car. So how do we actually build this thing? So step one is you order your eBay handbrake, put that to the side. And step two, it's basically going to come set up like a normal hydraulic handbrake in a car. Depending on how your desk is set up or how you want to mount it or support it, that's when you just basically pull it apart and make some adjustments to the mounting. For me, I had a spare piece of steel and I actually welded the frame of the handbrake to the steel, and there's a little extra part here that clamps on with the shifter, and that's what holds it steady on the desk. So as far as mounting, really it's whatever you're comfortable with for your skill set. You can clamp it down, you can weld it, whatever you got, figure it out. How do you actually make it work? So all you have to do for that is figure out where you can put the switch in the contraption here that something on this little lever is going to be able to activate the switch. So the switch is more or less just a button that needs to get pressed. And so what I've got on here is I've mounted the switch on the side of the little lever piece, and I've set it up with a spring and a couple washers and whatnot. Basically, it just allows me to pull this handbrake back and forth and have it return like a normal handbrake. In the middle here, I've got a washer, just a big washer, and that's the piece that actually connects with the switch and presses the button down. So you see I pull it down, and that actually presses the button on the switch, completes the circuit, and sends the signal. So it's a little bit of here or there, depending on what kind of extra nuts and bolts and washers you've got laying around. All you got to do is, one, pull the master cylinder off, get some kind of little spring, put that in there, screw it all back together. You can mimic what I've got here with washers and springs. Again, just make sure you have it bolted together. You've got your spring so that it returns. Put a big washer in there to contact the switch. And as long as you get this motion here, you're good to go. The last piece of the puzzle is going to be the USB circuit board thing. They make these for, if you think of like an arcade game where it has all the different buttons, if you're trying to replicate something like that, you got all these different slots here for multiple buttons. Obviously, we only need one button here, so you're using that first slot and the little wires plug in there. And then all you have to do is you plug this into the computer, and it, like your Windows drivers and everything, will automatically recognize it as a USB button or joystick. So it's super easy. As soon as you plug it in, the computer's going to recognize it. So again, you connect your wires to the two outputs on the switch, run that through to signal input number 1. All you got to do is press it in there, run this through your USB port, plug it into the computer, and that part's done. So now that you've got your handbrake built up, plugged in, set up in the computer, the last step is to fire up Assetto Corsa or Content Manager, whatever you use to launch the game, and go right into the settings for controls. So go over to settings, right down to controls, and basically you just need to map it to the handbrake setting. So go over to the buttons option. It should be right at the top, and you'll see here handbrake, and then you click to assign, give it the input, and you'll see joystick button 1 pops up. If that doesn't work, do a quick Google on your USB chip, make sure that you've got the right driver and it's plugged in properly. But we're good to go here. We've got joystick button 1, and again, that's all it is. The computer thinks that this is a joystick with a button. What it doesn't know is you've actually got a lever that's pressing the switch. So now that that's set, we're ready to go in the game and test it out. All right, so we are in the game now. I'm in my trusty old Tando Buddies 350Z. Let's give her a shot. And pull. And skids. That easy. Now we can do all the skids with our internet buddies and go ahead and enjoy a nice winter off season.